Neva isn't just a game. It's not a game that you just pick up, roll to the credits, and then put down. It's a game that sits with you. It's a game that you find yourself thinking about constantly. And after rolling the credits after about 6 hours, I wanted to offer my final thoughts on my experience through what I consider to be one of the greatest indie games I've ever played. What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel, and thanks so much for taking the time to check out my final thoughts video after finishing Neva. As I said in the intro, it took me about 6 hours to roll the credits on this game, and I finished it about a week or so ago, and have kind of allowed myself the time to just sit with my thoughts, sit with my feelings, avoid any sort of recency bias, and allow myself to compare my experience with Neva through obviously Nomada's other recent title, Grease, and some of the other indie games that I've played this year in an effort to kind of try to figure out and formulate my thoughts in a way that felt concise and that also felt like it was, fully fleshed out. Now, I've tried writing a review that, really encapsulated how I felt about this game, my thoughts on the gameplay and the mechanics, the music, and really just the overall encompassing experience. And after trying multiple different drafts, I finally decided to give up and just kind of speak from the heart. And so this isn't going to be like any sort of formal review. I'm just a guy that enjoys playing indie games and sharing his experience with other. I'm not like a professional reviewer. And so, take everything I say about this game with a grain of salt, as this is really just, at the end of the day, my personal opinion on my experience. But what I'm hoping for when sharing my final thoughts with you guys is that you'll, listen and take what I say from this video, take whatever you feel like is useful for you to make your own sort of concerted decision about whether or not you want to experience this game, or maybe you've experienced it already. Maybe you already rolled the credits and you want to hear if my thoughts potentially align with your personal experience. But either way, whether they align with your thoughts or not, let me know in the comments section below whether or not you've played this game or were on the fence about it. And if you have played it, let me know your thoughts and what what experiences that I share that maybe you resonated with. Also, before we get into it, drop a like on this video if you do enjoy it. I want to start getting in the habit of dropping my final thoughts after finishing every indie game. And so, yeah, let me know. Be on the lookout for more, final thoughts videos as we finish these games. Like I said, where I just kind of provide my personal thoughts, post credits on what I thought of the experience. And without further ado, let's dive in. So as I said in the intro, Neva it's more than just a game that you pick up and play. It's more than just another indie game in a sea of indie games. This is one that I think, after many people play it, will put atop their list of just overall masterpieces, not just in terms of the indie game space, because I feel like it potentially does a disservice to this game to put it simply in one of the greatest indie games to ever come out, even though that is true. In my personal opinion, this not only tops the indie category in terms of just absolute masterpieces, but this is a game that I think I'll look back on in the future in terms of my overall gaming experience as one of the greatest games I think I've ever experienced. What's great about this game, and obviously we're going to touch on, gameplay and stuff like that in more detail in a minute, but I just want to say that, outside of just the overall experience, when you really think about Neva as a game, it doesn't necessarily do anything that hasn't already been done. But what it does do, it does very well, and within the confines of this overall experience, it really hones in on those elements and making them as perfect as possible. And when I speak of perfection, I'm talking about obviously the gameplay, running around through the environments, both as Neva alongside Alba. It just did something to me when I experienced it. Like, it had such great emotional depth, and you really felt like, when you're playing as Alba, you really felt like, as you encountered enemies, this overwhelming maternal instinct to protect little Neva. And even as you go through the game and progress, and Neva gets older and is kind of assisting you a little bit more than Neva was back in the beginning of the game, there still feels this instinct that you have to protect this little creature. And that's kind of, this kind of nurturistic feeling that I felt as I experienced this game is not something that many games, if any, have ever provided to me. There's very few games that I can look back on and think of having such an emotional response or connection to events unfolding in the game. Like again, like I felt, I think, a similar feeling when I played Grease, which is ironic because it's made by the same studio. And there's very few other games, from The Last of Us to Journey to a few other games that I could potentially think of that I think have generated a truly emotional response. And they're games that I truly resonate with, because when I play a game and when I pick a game up, some games, yes, you're looking just to have that kind of, just relaxing experience. You just want to pick it up, play, achieve a goal and an objective, and kind of move on. But as I played Neva, and as I played some of the other games that I mentioned, they genuinely produced an emotional response that I felt like is something that I've only felt so many times as my many years as a gamer. And to me, I think that that's something really special and something that we have to take note of when it comes to Neva, a game that I think truly just captures the emotional quality that we as humans feel as we go about life. Whether you have a sibling or a mom or a dad or whoever, you have experienced in some capacity that similar feeling of wanting to protect something, to take care of something, to nurture something. And I think that this game captures that emotional essence so well, and more than many other games have been able to do. And it was more than a game that just had characters that you kind of got to know like from the beginning. And from the beginning of the game, I felt a connection to these characters, to Neva, to Alba, and whatever journey that they were about to go on that would produce and be filled with trials and tribulations that they would have to overcome. You kind of could see from the very beginning the emotional connection and the bond that was going to be forming between these two characters, and you already felt like you were a part of that bond. And it's something that's so hard to explain, but I feel like the initial kind of cut scene that we experience at the beginning of the game, I think perfectly captures that and really sets the tone for the experience that we as the player will be going on. And I think the game does a really great job of meshing those two realms and making you feel like as you're playing through the game, you're kind of going along on that experience as well. Whereas some games, I feel like kind of there's such a divide between them. You don't feel as connected to the characters, and so you're not drawn into the story, into the world as much as potentially you could be. But I always applaud games like this that are able to really pull you in and wrap you in, connect you to the story and the characters. And again, as I played through this game, I said it during our playthrough that there were moments that I had in this experience where I genuinely forgot that I was playing a game. Like I was so connected to the combat and to the moment. I truly felt in tune with the moment, and I think that that's something that you hope for as a gamer, to kind of be pulled into a world and to be wrapped into the environment and things. And I feel like so few games do that, and I think there's different ways that you could do that. And I think that there's many ways in which Neva, the game, actually achieves that. It's through its music, it's through its beautiful color palette, it's watercolor painting, graphics, and it's gameplay. There's so many elements that I think this game achieves that and pulling you in. And a game that I think can encompass all of those things and have them fuse and kind of correlate together, I think can really pull you in even further. I think it's honestly why people talk about games like Grease and games like The Outer Wilds and stuff like that, because I think they're games that really they fully maximize those elements, from the music to the gameplay to the overall experience to the story to the kind of curiosity of it all, and they meld all of those things so beautifully together in one cohesive experience that you can't help but be locked in and fully embrace the overall experience. And that was my experience with this game. I found moments, especially in the combat, which was exceptional, by the way. I mean, obviously I could talk about combat all day long, but I'll just leave it at kind of what it is, especially if you guys have followed through the playthrough. I mean, the combat is as crispy and fluid as you could have imagined. And again, this game doesn't necessarily do anything outside of the box. It doesn't do anything really incredible, or I wouldn't say incredible, but anything that's necessarily unknown to, a seasoned gamer. Like, you have combat, you have your traditional slash attacks, your downward strikes, your double jumps and things like that. But It's what it does with the combat that I think is so beautiful. Like it's, there's no skill trees, there's no leveling up or anything like that, but the combat just felt so good. And I think that at the end of the day, that's really all you want as a gamer. You want a game that feels good. It feels good to play. The controls feel snappy. They feel fluid, even in some of the minute details that I think are illustrated in the combat, from, the moment that Alba unsheaths her sword to the moments where she is actually swiping at an enemy. Like, I highlighted that probably in our second episode of this playthrough, the moment where she kind of sheaths her sword at the end of a sword strike. I just think the moments like that, little details like that, are what just really captivated me in terms of the gameplay. And I guess I could say that the only thing that I wish that I feel like it could have been added for this game, to make it just a bit of an even deeper gameplay experience, would obviously be some sort of skill tree. And as you're going through the game, Neva is having is accessing new abilities that you could potentially unlock. And I think that potentially could have added a little bit more. But even without that being present and just having the kind of simplistic, combat mechanics that existed, they still did such a great job of creating a game that first and foremost felt fluid in its motion. And again, like I said, that's really all you want when it comes to a gameplay experience. And when we speak about captivation, and one of the things that I've mentioned so many times through, not only through my playthrough, but in this, kind of final thoughts video, is the music. Now, I've said this before, as someone that has always been a big fan of movie trailers, TV trailers, game trailers, really just any kind of like cinematic trailer or anything. I always say music makes the moment. And one of the first things that I notice when I watch a trailer is the soundtrack, whether it's a song that I know, a revamped, remixed version of a song that I know, or some sort of completely curated, orchestral piece that I think, that is added to that trailer. It's one of the first things that I often notice. And then the same goes for movies as well. And games are no exception to that as well. I love a good soundtrack, guys. I cannot express enough how I feel like the soundtrack in a game is really what pulls you in. Like, whether you're playing a game like Doom, which I'm going to use as an example, because I've always found like the soundtracks in those games to be so incredibly incredible and perfectly tied into the game. This kind of hard rock, metal, punk kind of vibe that you get in every sort of like combat encounter. But it's one of the things that I love the most about that game is its incredible musical score. And I feel like every musical piece and every level perfectly matched what the vibe of the level was. And I can say the same about Neva, whether you're in the snow-capped mountains or you're in the beautiful summer kind of fields as you're roaming through, continuing on through your journey. I often felt like the music perfectly encapsulated that. Like, when we were in the snowy area, it was this kind of like, it was a song that was playing that felt very relaxing and peaceful, but also at the same time, in the kind of background of that song, you could hear this kind of like epic like beat building up as you got closer and closer, as you climbed further and further to the peak of the mountain. And it's moments like that I really enjoyed. There was a water area that probably was one of my favorite areas in the entire game that I think perfectly encapsulated that as well. It just kind of felt like you were in some sort of oasis, and all of that could be accompanied, could be credited to the music. And so it's something, again, it's one of my favorite aspects of Greece was the soundtrack, and I loved that soundtrack so much that I inevitably went out and got the vinyl record for that soundtrack, because every song that I experienced in every level was just so beautiful. And Neva was no different. And some of the combat sequences that we got to experience in this game, I think were so good and were made so special because of the musical score. And so I can't say enough that that's easily one of my favorite aspects of this experience was the music. It just perfectly illustrated the moment, whether it was an intense battle or whether or not you were kind of just exploring these beautiful areas and biomes. It was definitely one of my favorite pieces and components of this experience. And I think it all ties in. It all ties in so beautifully. The gameplay, the music, the action. it's all wrapped in this beautiful 6-hour experience or so, which you probably could finish. I would say maybe you might even be able to finish this game in maybe 4 hours if you were really pushing. But I found myself kind of stopping a lot, enjoying and embracing the moments and many of the beautiful views that this game had. Like every 2 seconds, all I did was want to take a screenshot of where I was going. And there are very few games that I think come around that I genuinely, once I roll the credits, I want to start a new game again. And when it came to Neva, it's exactly what I did. Like I just, as soon as I finished that game, we finished our playthrough together. I wanted to play it again on my own, just sitting on my couch, just enjoying this experience because I loved it so much. And so, I feel like there's very few games that have that effect on me. And so I really wanted to kind of do my first final thoughts video on the channel about this game and going back to, what feels like a complete journey. When they announced this game, I was excited about it. When we got, screenshots and footage, it felt like it was an evolution of Grease, and where Grease crawled, I felt like this game soared. And like I said, the only major minor critique that I would have given, that I could give about this game, is I wish, like, now that they added combat, if they were to evolve and do a third game kind of in this similar style and there was combat in that game, I would love for them to kind of take the combat to the next level, have there be some sort of skill tree where you're learning new skills or new abilities or something. I feel like, having those RPG elements, as someone that kind of has grown up with JRPGs and RPGs and kind of MMO style games, I always love a good skill tree. I love the opportunity to feel like you're leveling up. And again, that's not a knock to this game. It's just that one thing that I potentially would have added, especially when it comes to collecting those flowers. I think the flowers may have been good for getting like art pieces or something. But, when I was playing the game and we were collecting those flowers, I always thought, I couldn't help but think, this would be so great if these were, some sort of currency that you were collecting throughout the game that would allow you to unlock new abilities or something like that. And as far as I know, they didn't really do much of anything outside of just be something for you to chase. But, if there was some sort of benefit to them and they were allowed to be turned in for some sort of thing, that would have been like kind of the only thing that I would have done to or suggest to potentially like, evolve on the gameplay mechanic. But as it stands, and from what we were presented, this game was perfect, guys. I mean, it was perfect. I felt like the story was long enough. I felt like the emotional aspects of it were strong. Like I genuinely felt connected to these characters. The music was top tier in just about every aspect of the game. The graphics were incredible. The movement, the motion, the progression of the story felt like, every level, every season you got to was moving the story along in a nice pace that did not feel too fast. It didn't feel too slow. I didn't feel like we were being forced through any sort of filler content. And that's what you want from a game. And it's incredible to imagine that this game was made by just a small little indie studio that has only made one other game before then, and they were able to produce something this special. People still talk about Grease to this day. It's one of, I would say, the pillars of the indie community. People talk about indie games. Grease is probably typically one of those games that's mentioned, and I think Neva will ultimately be in that category as well. And I think my only regret from experiencing this game is you can only experience it once, and even after you experience it again, it won't be the first time. You kind of know what to expect. And 2024 has been full of great games. There's been lots of great games to come out, but none have excited me as much as my time playing Neva. And so I'm really excited and really happy about this game. Excited to share my final thoughts with you guys, as this game was really one that was very special to me. So I'm fully excited about the opportunity to acquire some Neva merch, and hopefully they make a vinyl for this game, because I would love to have the soundtrack just to be able to play in my home, to create those cozy and peaceful kind of atmospheres that I enjoy in my downtime. But overall, guys, I mean, this was a masterpiece of an experience. This was not a game that you just pick up and play and put down and move on. This was a game that sits with you, a game that you think about and you relish in that experience of that first time that you got to experience it. And, in a world that's so full of so many different games, it's nice to have a game that comes around that feels complete from start to finish. And it feels like it was made with a vision of being a complete product from the beginning to the end, and it takes you on a journey that, is reminds me why I made this channel. It truly felt like a special experience, and it's one that I hope others will join and dive in on. I think this is an incredible game, and especially if you liked Greece, then there's no doubt in my mind that you'll enjoy Neva as well. But that's my experience, guys. I loved this game, loved being able to share it with you guys. So if you guys did see the playthrough of this series, thank you so much. And if you haven't seen this series, it's on my channel right now. If you guys want to take a look at those videos, I think it's like a 7-part series, but every part kind of, is even better than the last, in my opinion. And I would love to just hear what you guys have to say about it. So be on the lookout for more playthroughs, more series. We have so many other games that I'm excited to play, with you guys. And if there's an indie game that you would love to see me experience, because there's plenty that I've not played before, be sure to drop that in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about that. I would love to share more indie game experiences with each and every one of you. And if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on it, as it really helps out the channel, helps this video get seen by more people. Comment down below what your thoughts were if you've played Neva, or maybe you're going to play it now for the first time. Let me know. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments, and subscribe if you're new here, and enjoy cozy commentary for your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support on this Final Thoughts video, and be on the lookout for many more Final Thoughts videos as we continue to play through and share cozy indie game experiences together. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.